Alright, the response for My Zombie Myself. So there was a good use of research and connecting back to the text with in-text citations for this discussion. In analyzing the writing, looking at the personal I, or meta-discourse, a couple of you noted that it's on a more personal level, and it shares the thoughts directly with the reader. But these types of writings, when you use the I, me, or myself, can be biased and possibly miss out on other perspectives. It would also be seen as less scientific. Pay attention to that in your future writings. It just depends on the type of writing that you're looking to create. If it is something more scientific, then possibly don't use the I, me, or my statements, but it all depends. What is it that you're constructing? So be aware of what the perspective is or what you're trying to do with writing. About the monsters themselves, it was stated that each monster is given an origin based on the fear of something, like disease or detachment from nature. The vampires retain humanism, the zombies do not. Definitely, the lack of knowledge is a key factor to how we have these monsters, or the connection of things, like fear of disease. We, as humans, one of the natural things is to survive. So we avoid things like the plague. There's a reason why we have that phrasing. Avoid things like the plague. I do like this idea of detachment from nature. With more industrialization, we have cut out a lot of plant life or nature itself. You have to drive pretty far to find a nature reserve, or at least what you might feel like connecting back with nature. Cities are growing larger and larger as we continue to expand. Society continues to expand. So, with that, the nature of monsters can change, and one big one, if we are all crowded like you might see in a city, San Diego isn't too bad, relatively, depending on your perspective. However, New York, certainly you can see people being packed pretty tightly within the city, with apartments and condos, high-rises, any of those things. It's a very tight landscape. A city with one area of nature, unless you drive out to the countryside. And those areas, or that industrialization, has certainly caused a lot of those types of monsters, or the fear of disease. And certainly that is a strong point. Some examples that were brought up that were zombie-like or about zombies was that the internet equals like a hive mind thinking. Individuality, personality, self-intelligence are put on hold. I like the Plants vs. Zombies example as a constant wave that needs to be clearing, which the student gave as a metaphor for the internet. I also thought it was like notifications that you might have on your phone or tablet, whatever you might use, that if you have so many notifications, it becomes harder to clear. And I think that phrase was also used in The Walking Dead, which is one of the things that was pointed out, which I will get to. TikTok was also mentioned as an example. I do know that there are several comments about TikTok, just in general. How you can dive into hours of content, forget about the world, just become like a zombie staring at a screen, which you can fall down the rabbit hole, either there on TikTok, on the internet, on YouTube. And then, as was mentioned, The Walking Dead as an example, as each challenge is met with a bigger one in a never-ending struggle. For one part, one of the characters says, "I have to clear," and that becomes his whole focus is just clearing the zombies, clearing areas, or the walkers, whatever they're called in the show or shows. And yes, that is a big reason why I think a lot of people, well, it is one reason that I have heard a lot of people say why they stopped watching The Walking Dead. Because, we have a great place, let's build it up, it's fantastic. Something bad happens, here's the villain, come destroy the place, now they have to go find a new place. I do like the show, but that does feel like a rinse and repeat. Almost like what happens with the zombies. You have somebody, oh no, I have an infection. I'm not going to tell anybody I have the infection, or I've been bitten, or something along those lines. Go live in the place, turn into the zombie, bite people, and then it starts over again. I did like what somebody said about The Walking Dead, is that it's a daily dose of moral and intellectual reflection, which is one of the things that I like about the show. Their show, and I have read most of the graphic novels, or graphic novel, that talks a lot about this, the moral and intellectual reflection. One of the aspects about discussing horror and monsters is in that, the reflection, what it means for ourselves, what it means for society, a lot of that. And you can have these discussions, or a lot of people have already watched or read the horror and then discussed. So if you are not somebody who likes these things, then you could read into that and understand society a little better, or that it agrees with whatever you had thought about society or the world. There were two quotes that stood out. One was, "No matter how hard it gets, as long as you stick to the tried and true solution, everything will work out." It reminded me of the phrase from the movie Galaxy Quest, "Never give up, never surrender." Just keep going, you can make it. Which is a nice way to look at the idea of a never-ending wave, like zombies. If you keep pushing through, you'll make it. School can feel like that sometimes, but there is an end to things. You can accomplish your goals at the end of everything. And the last one was, "Science is the redemption, but also our courage, kindness, collaboration, and sense of responsibility." A good way to encapsulate all of that. That we need knowledge, but we also need some of those human qualities to work together, and that we can survive as a species. Kindness being one of those big ones. So, otherwise, great discussion.